Hello and welcome to the commentary track for Jurassic Park Episode 3, The Depths. I am Andrew Langley. I was director and programmer on this episode.
I'm Mark Darin, designer and writer.
John Drake, designer and writer of Episode 3.
Jessica Lozana, the lead animator.
Hogan, art director.
Yeah, first thing I'm going to mention here is that it took me a little while to figure out how to start this episode because I can't remember a previous episode of a Telltale game that like one episode ended in the middle of an action sequence and the next episode started in the same moment. But hopefully this is okay.
Oh my God, those poor people.
It's fine.
Lucky that chopper.
I think it works.
I don't know if we should talk about the original design for the whole water tower, like the first.
Oh yeah, well it went through a few iterations, you know. I mean, first we had you wobbling the water tower back and forth, kind of running.
Yeah, I think it was like you got inside the water silo and then would run back and forth to bring it down. But then I think Jessica informed us how crazy expensive it is to have a water tower fall and collapse and destroy. So we came up with this thing about the emergency ladder instead.
Let's just tilt it a little bit.
We promised there would be no water inside the water tower. Hopefully that would do it. Apparently that still wasn't enough.
Yeah, the other thing, I think I tried to add shots of the support legs of the water tower sort of buckling because I think the first time people looked at this, they didn't get that the helicopter had done damage to the water tower. So it was like a little absurd to people that the Raptors could ever bring that thing down. So we tried as best we could to just communicate that this water tower is not entirely stable at this point.
Won't budge. It's brand new, so it might still be a little stiff. Maybe if you put more weight on it.
What, you mean stand
I think there's like two different versions of the line where Jerry gets on the ladder. Like one is that he says like
as soon as it comes down.
that he realizes the ladder's been painted shut by the park.
Yeah, not everybody liked that. I mean, certainly has a certain amount of realism to it. I think everybody's experienced, you know, when stuff isn't built the way that it's supposed to be. But
well, it also helps to communicate that the ladder's bent because the helicopter's done damage to the tower.
Right. Now this way's better.
Yeah, it does. I was a little sad though because I was like, I always thought it was kind of hilarious that the inefficient park has been screwed up.
So how was this writing for you, John? I remember I'd written the end of episode 2 where they were all trapped on the water tower and then the helicopter came and crashed and I just left it there for you to figure out what was going to happen next.
Yeah, well, I mean, once we figured out how they could get down from the tower, it really wasn't that hard. You know, once we had that back and forth between rocking it back and forth and, you know, what it ended up with.
I do remember it was interesting that, you know, after it went into your hands, I had kind of already wrapped up episode 2. And then you were making changes to make the puzzles and the action better here at the beginning, so then I would have to kind of go back and retrofit those things to the end of episode 2, which was not really something I'd done before on a project, but I think it worked out really well.
Yeah, and I tried to work with what you had already kind of set up.
I tried to leave you a nice opening so it wasn't too stuck in the middle of nowhere with like the raptors that actually climbed up and bit somebody's arm.
Right. Well, they weren't painted into a corner. It was okay.
Yeah, and I think like as cool as the idea of them getting inside and running back and forth would have been, like I think we were also like, how do you, what mechanic is that to like, and like how do you communicate this like easily and quickly?
Yeah, what's the quick time event for that?
That would have been a big challenge. So I'm kind of glad we ended up where we were. Yes.
I'm glad to see the bug with.
We don't talk about bugs. They were never bugs. They were never bugs. Just all
behind her eyelashes
do?
glowed hot white behind her glasses.
Yeah,
nice.
for a while she looked like an ice princess. Like her eyelashes were like frosty white.
Very frosty and drab.
I'm very glad that got resolved.
I'm ready. Jess, honey, you get ready to move.
There's one thing I had to go make sure at the end of episode 2 that the door in the background was open because I think we realized very late that the door was closed. So that was like a little bit of a continuity issue, but we got it just in time.
This Jess action coming up, we realized when we went to the mocap shoot that it was technically physically impossible for Jess to swing down onto the ladder like she does. Why we just cut around it?
Yeah, after
Try.
I have to give credit to cinematic artist on the scene, Jason Latino, because there was a lot we had to cut around to sort of imply and work with what we had, and he did a really good job on getting people into the position they needed to and not show certain things, and also just kind of making it a really tight sequence. Because I really wanted this episode to start off hectic and crazy.
Thanks.
I remember the first time I heard the music in this section. It was a little bit different from any of the music that I heard in the previous 2 episodes with these kind of bongo action drums going on. It felt odd at first, but I really liked the kind of the pace it sets for the sequence.
That was a selfish thing I wanted, because one of my favorite Jurassic Park tracks is actually from The Lost World, which there's a track that has these bongo drums kind of underneath, which I sent to our composer Jared Emerson Johnson that was a track I really wanted to pay homage to in this episode, because it was one of my favorites. It was really important for me to get the transition from the last scene of the cutting to black as he closes down the door to the fading up from black as he regains consciousness here. And hopefully it was...
Never get tired of Oscar smoking animation. Just chilled, kick back, cigarette. There it is.
We should talk about this.
He ended up with a cigarette.
He
used to have a cigar.
The smoking was a very controversial thing, I feel, throughout this entire episode.
Yeah.
Because not only we have Oscar smoking, but we had Jess later on as we revealed with the cigarettes.
Right.
And I think a lot of people were kind of uncomfortable with the use of tobacco. But not only because of the content, but also making sure we got a good rating. But
Yeah, it was questionable whether she was going to be able to smoke. We had backup plans.
right, but I think it ended up working.
The Oscar smoking pose, though, was originally just supposed to be used for the one shot in episode 2.
Right.
And then it was pretty much the cinematic artist just liked that pose so
Well, no, I
much
think it was
that-
just like, it was every scene where the choreographers were like, so what should Oscar be doing here? And I'm like, I don't know, just have him smoking, because I couldn't figure out what to get him to do.
But really, the message here is, kids, that if you try to smoke, raptors will attack you.
Yeah,
Yes.
bad things happen to everybody who tries to smoke.
That's right.
There was
Oscar
reason
dies.
for putting it in the
Oscar
in the story.
dies of smoking in this.
Spoiler alert.
Hope it's not for her face. Heavy.
Accelerated lung cancer did him
Could
in.
just be full, I guess.
Right before that raptor claw.
It's only sloshing at the top. Sounds half empty, feels full.
I do have to say, I always wish we'd found a better way to have him. It's always odd to have a character talking to themselves and working out a thing, but I mean, there is nobody else for him to talk to right now. So it's
Right.
like,
He's a half-empty Barbasol can
A
kind of
lady
guy.
has a secret stash. But what the hell is it? T-Rex. It's leaving.
Oscar's
Damn it,
just very
Oscar.
heavy.
I only have one pair of pants.
it's true, he's a big guy.
The chopper's not gonna blow, but just about everything in it, including our weapons, is flame broiled.
Yeah, it's convenient the way we got rid of the weapons, because
Yeah, well,
a
there
Jurassic Park movie or game is nothing without characters somehow not having access to firearms.
Yeah, although they had them in the first movie, they just weren't able to really use them
It's not
effectively.
truly shaving cream. Look.
But there was some controversy about that too, because if you've got a bunch of
So, now what's
guns in the helicopter wreckage, you better be sure that all of the ammo has gone up.
Stuff. What do you think she's up
I
to?
don't even remember this scene.
What? It's not the best scene you've ever seen, and it's ingrained in your mind.
Oh, it's quite nice.
It is nice.
I just don't remember
Try to
it.
salvage this gig?
Yeah, I'm gonna go look for our friends.
Shouldn't I come with?
We lost the guns. Means I gotta be in stealth mode.
You saying I can't sneak?
I'm saying neither one of us can sneak and watch.
And this kind of begins the,
Besides,
I think the
we'll talk
biggest
to me
characteristic for this episode for me, which is everybody being kind of
Tough job.
separated and on their own path and solving their own problems. And the thing that was the thing I wanted to direct most of all in this episode, was just because of the way the story was laid out, and we keep cutting between people back and forth. I think it was a big deal for us as an episodic game. Like, we never
Oh, this was an amazing moment. The original outsourced animation for the raptor opening the door was very human.
Which I've still never seen, and have begged everybody to show me that
animation. It looks like this.
Should have stayed in bed.
Everyone just
Opening a
wanted
door.
Just
to,
opening a door. And
They
then
wanted
Like he
to
was
throw
on
a
his
top
coffee
hat
break or
on.
something.
I still,
coffee break.
I want to see
Going
this
to open this
animation.
door now.
I don't. No one has shown it to me. And then I think this is a sequence that changed a little bit after playtest, because I think people didn't quite understand that Oscar, doesn't really want to go into this thing, but he realizes he can hear Jess and Jerry talking behind the door, and he knows he can't get in through that door because it's locked, so he sort of has no choice but to follow the raptors into the tunnels to make sure the raptors don't kill Jess and Jerry. And to a lesser extent, Sorkin.
Locked.
And so we position the camera first on the door to try to encourage people to try that first, and realize that he has no choice but to go in these side tunnels. And that expression also. So
Darn it.
Not Oscar's best day.
Nope.
And he'd walk so casually in. I loved that they threw the compies.
Yeah, that was a last minute
there.
thing where I was just like, one of the big things was just people like dinosaurs, obviously, in Jurassic Park, so we wanted to throw in as much dinosaurs as we could, and I realized, we've got these compies around, we might as well just kind of throw them in at the last minute, and hopefully people don't wonder why they weren't, eating Nima as they...
First time I saw it, I just brought a smile to my face. It was so cute.
They're cute until you see them eat a man, and
Nima really
Well,
smells.
they don't do that unless you've been tasering them for a while.
Right, that's true.
They just
They don't
snap at
hate
your
people.
chicken salad sandwich, and
They don't hate people inherently. They just hate that one guy that was
Where's the cane?
a jerk.
I got the impression that they didn't treat that little girl at the beginning of the movie all that well.
they just wanted
That's a
her little
good point.
sandwich, and she was feeding them. Just like pigeons,
Maybe
Start
she
throwing
kicked
food
one of
out.
them
They'll
off
overwhelm
camera.
him pretty quickly.
You just didn't see the one that was biting her foot, and that's what woke her up.
Learn to shave with this stuff.
I really liked the idea of
Now!
Yoder being in the tree, because we could really, do a lot to show this conversation from down below with her angle and up high with his angle, and
Says so right on the can.
kind of communicate, he's got the upper hand here.
So important about
I think the cinematographer on this scene wanted to have him sitting on the branch just because it's really hard to stage a conversation when you're leaning up against a tree, and
If you drop them, they'll be destroyed.
this is kind of more of a bargaining position anyway, so it works.
I'd like to have a moment of silence for Nima and Yoder's sex life.
Jen's gonna love me.
Yeah, so there was this whole dialogue where you could, as Nima, appeal to Yoder in a more
This
flirtatious, I guess not even...
Well, it's just rather than appeal to his greed or honor, you appeal to his need
You
for
can basically
love.
suggest that
Right.
he's going to get lucky with her
Quit your job.
if he agrees, but
What to do?
there were enough people that called it out as like a sequence making them feel very uncomfortable.
I believe the word was
because they
icky.
didn't, as Nemo, want to, I guess, go to that low of a level where she's trying to appeal to him
Okay,
sexually.
here's the
I still think she totally would, though.
I mean, I think
agree that
it's
she would. It felt
yeah.
odd within the sequence, being able to go back and forth between the things.
deliver them to your
So I think because the player can kind of choose a path, then it felt a little bit odd.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's like some people pointed out, like, who they would start the conversation of like trying to appeal to him sexually, but then halfway through the conversation kind of say like, I really want to bail out of
Yeah,
this, I don't want to
I
keep
don't wanna
going,
do this.
but we didn't provide you with an option of saying like, forget what I said, never mind, I don't want to sleep with you. But yeah, it was a tough call, and
I mean,
we
admittedly,
fought for it a long time, and then but I think in the end enough people called it out that it was just like,
I imagine it was also awkward since halfway through he kind of starts to tally his reasonings.
yeah. Well, we tried to make it like feel like she was tricking him, but it
Yeah.
still didn't come
Well,
across.
I think we tried to make it. I tried to make it at least with her read as like clumsy as possible. Like she's trying to hit on him, but so not convincingly that there wasn't any question of the player's mind that she wasn't doing a very good job. But somehow it still didn't come across, and we always tried to do it as like Yoder to give a sense that Yoder never really buys into it anyway. He's just like, yeah, whatever. But
throughout the series, there does feel like there's a tension there between them.
Yeah, I guess so.
They argue like a married couple.
They do.
Yep. To show Artie Bridges how to do it.
Believe me, I regret it.
More than Yoder and
How
Oscar.
was I to know how bad he was? He begged me. Said it was his.
They don't argue like a married couple.
You know,
Probably distressingly similar to Yoder and Oscar, actually.
He certainly is. I guess there was a reason it was just a dream. He actually records his show ahead of time so that he can broadcast during work hours.
I kind of like how that shot with the foot is a little reminiscent of the raptor step in the movie where its claw kind of taps the floor.
We're staying here until Oscar gets back.
We don't even know if he's alive.
Oscar's fine. He's coming back. And come hell or high water, we are not leaving.
But we got that tree shaking.
Yeah.
Then again, maybe you have a point.
Come on, we gotta run.
No time.
There's a tattoo on Billy's arm, and there's also one on Oscar that ties them together as characters, hinting that they've had some past together. I can't remember what it was called. Something about Jaguars of Death or something in Spanish.
I think
Here comes this guy again.
the pilot also has it when they come across him at the episode. That's
That's right.
It can't see you unless you.
I really thought about sticking Mokupa in here, which is that bird that was in every episode except for this one. Although I don't know if he made it into 4 either. I think this was like stupid. Wasn't this your suggestion, Bogan? Like really early on,
the bug?
We had an idea about a cockroach on his face or something. I think originally the idea was like it would be on Oscar's face as he was like hanging from a catwalk in the tunnels, but
Yeah, someone wanted to crawl in his mouth.
yeah, right. That was that was an idea, but I think, and it was one of those things where like getting that animation right was a real challenge. Getting the cockroach on his face and getting his expression to be like somewhat realistic and not overly cartoony was difficult.
Not to mention the cockroach was about the size of his head when we first started.
I remember when we did the reference shoot, we went in the back and with a video camera and we filmed Dave Bogan hugging a box and me with a wire coat hanger with a piece of styrofoam at the end, moving it on his face like a cockroach and sending that to the animation people's reference.
It ended up being a little too far-fetched.
Yeah.
It was toned down because my face is far-fetched.
This scene
well, you know what? Actually,
was
maybe I will.
I mean, Sean Ainsworth did the cinematography on this scene, and
My thoughts.
to me it was like not an enviable task just because the dialogue here is really interesting, but you know, I told him, I was like, the challenge you're gonna have with here is like it's two characters in a room talking and trying to encourage him to make it as interesting as possible visually, and I think he did a pretty good job with this.
Yeah, for my part, I just tried to, you know,
That'll reach every dinosaur in the park.
give each side of the argument, you know, something compelling to say.
You're insane. Denying the dinosaurs lysine was the only.
It was also important to me that
them out of the global ecosystem.
because I think this scene really appeals a lot to the people that are really interested in the science of Jurassic Park.
Do I need to remind
But
you that there are
in case there were some people out there who maybe weren't that interested in the workings of the park, to give them the ability to get out of the conversation after we've conveyed the necessary information. But
tell me this.
Remember when we playtested, I think most people sat through all the dialogue and they wanted to know as much about the park as possible. So that was cool.
My formula targets superorder Dinosauria exclusively. If I tried to account for the pteranodons, I might have affected other reptiles.
Oh, at least there's that.
Now that I think about it, though, targeting only pteranodons or any one species
envy you for
would be a
being able to
simple
spell
change.
pteranodons
I wouldn't even
correctly
need
all
a
the
full
time. I don't know
lab.
if that would
Am I
have been
gonna have to
difficult
ask
for me.
Jess to ladies' room?
It won't come to that. If I decide
I think the two things
Try pterodactyl.
The two things I walked away from the series with was I learned how to spell Triceratops flawlessly, and I learned how to say
Apology, I guess, but this isn't about me.
Parasaurolophus.
Parasaurolophus.
Yes.
All of us love the Parasaurolophus.
Yes. Before you told me that, I did not. I never knew how to pronounce that
These
word.
animals can swim.
For quite some time, it was Parasaurolophus. I think even the original voice recording was saying Parasaurolophus.
ridiculous.
and then we
pickups
realized
there.
our mistake.
And not to expose
about the
us
copies?
further, but I realized in the website,
yes.
the VO on the website, it pronounces it incorrectly.
Have you ever
unfortunately.
even seen
What about
dinosaurs
copies? What's
try
their
to
real
swim?
name?
We keep them in cages.
Dare to say that?
They don't get to
Anybody want to try it?
Compsognathus.
There we go.
Oh, nice.
swim than
You win the prize.
But Jerry always says Compsognathus. It annoys me.
But I still believe that
thought we fixed
120
most of
miles of open water is an effective barrier.
This is actually like, in a way, kind of an important moment for Jerry because I think it's the first time in the series so far that he gets a little bit assertive and starts
Yeah.
to get a little irritated because before he's always been like the super nice and accommodating guy, and here he's kind of starting to say like to really be
Let's just agree.
not too happy with what's going on here.
Yeah, he's starting to lose his patience. He's starting to lose his nice guy, shiny
Yeah, well,
exterior.
he does want to kill all the dinosaurs, so.
It's not that he wants to kill him. He's
Down the hall looking at
just
stuff.
following protocol.
He just wants to save the people.
Sorry, honey, I was distracted, but don't go off again like that, okay?
Yeah, okay.
That's a little disrespectful.
Kids these days.
Yeah, this
Nice.
episode was nice in that all the characters are just kind of starting to lose themselves a little bit, and then as things fall apart around them, they're starting to be.
I gotta point out just what I really appreciated here was like the cinematographer who was putting this together actually has a moment in the background where you can see the canister fall out of Yoder as he's running, like right there.
Nice.
It's really subtle, but you can see it fall out, which pays off later.
And I'm so glad that it does continue to fall out.
Yes.
That was
Oh, gruesome.
almost lost that moment.
Yes. We'll mention that in a bit.
Tasty dinosaur.
And of course, everyone wants to see a raptor get eaten by a T-Rex.
It was really tricky in this game, in the whole series, to kind of balance the violence that we show to stay within our teen rating.
And stay within what in Jurassic Park itself does.
This is one of the best Nema deaths,
Right.
though. Unfortunately, Shaun didn't die.
What? Come on, Sean.
Trying to play it.
It's also like Nick Mastriani did the original choreography on this, and I give him credit because he didn't have a ton to work with here in terms of animations, but he really made it work with what we had. Oh, Nemo. Oh yeah.
He did die.
See, was that hand animated or was that like put together from other animations? I can't remember.
I may have lost track of that one. I don't know. I
By this
believe
point in
it
the
was-
project, all the animations started to blend together, and we didn't know what.
Her doing a flip was based off of Jess doing the flip in episode 1.
Right.
So then we just
The embryos.
based the death off of
I,
that new flip. So it was like a third step of animation.
I think the T-Rex has all the best death animations associated. Oh, I added this shot at the end.
As he
just 'cause,
should.
So, this begins some of the gameplay of Oscar stalking the raptors in the tunnels, and I think we had a lot more of this in the original design, but I think it kind of works that we cut back on it a bit, because I think there's only so much you can do with that to still make it interesting. So I think we had, hopefully, just the right amount of Oscar stealthiness in this.
Yeah, once you start to repeat the mechanics too much, then all of a sudden
Right,
we've got a
right.
stealth game.
And just to keep the pacing up, because I mean, I feel like this episode in general moves at a really fast pace, which was very important to me. And
I like that you made a lot of the gameplay with the stealth, kind of this timing, rhythm-based movement thing. Which, in the original designs, what I'm hearing, we were kind of walking slowly through these tunnels. I'm trying to figure out how that's going to work with our gameplay mechanics, but I liked that kind of rhythm, having to keep that rhythm.
God, getting this to read at all was actually very difficult. Just to communicate that it was the metal buckling under his feet that was. So yeah, John and I really had to fight to keep this sequence in the game because, you know, you're looking at the budget and, you know, you're trying to meet your dates, and you look at this sequence on paper, it makes total sense. It's like, this is a sequence that could be cut very easily. But it was really important for John and me to keep this just because of the slow, tense nature of the gameplay. and I think it ended up being a lot of people's like favorite sequence in the game. So I'm
I
really
got
glad.
really happy the first time I played that with the whole footsteps thing.
Yeah,
it seems like a simple
officially
thing.
Terrible at it. I think I died like 5 or 6 times.
I think that it was kind of the birth of a new mechanic for us.
It
the
was.
footsteps
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, we started layering in that sneaking mechanic a lot more throughout the series.
Yeah, I think it worked
It's
really
kind
well.
of a shame we didn't flub it once or twice here, because some of that stuff is pretty funny. They get to rag
Yeah.
on each other.
So if you're playing this at home, make sure to mess up a few times.
The music actually is also a bit of an homage to Jaws and John Williams, which I thought was.
And bonus points if you're old enough to remember who Carl Lewis is.
Yeah, you looked that up, didn't you?
No,
Like,
I didn't have to look that up.
you didn't. Oh, you just knew. I like.
Because I'm old enough to remember who Carl Lewis is.
So
Wait,
I mean,
that's
we
Carl
really it's nice to bring back the push to close because that's
My
such an
favorite
iconic-
voice line in the whole series is coming up here somewhere. I hope he says it.
I think.
Shut that crap right up. I love that.
Oh yeah, because he mimics
Oil pump or something.
Nema's line, and we actually played for the actor Jason Marsden the line that Nema said back in his headphones, and he mimicked her. And,
It was real acting. It was reality, actually.
I gotta say, his performance in this episode was just great. He really knocked it out of the park, and he almost had ESP. It was like in the booth where he'd like read a line, and then before we could even give him any direction, he'd just be like, "Oh yeah, I know, I need to do it like this." And it's like it is exactly what we were thinking.
I was really happy with all of the vocal performances in this
I agree.
episode. I think everybody just did a terrific job.
I really do like Billy, though. I think he's my favorite, and
Well-
he kind of reminds me of like a young Kurt Russell or something, where he's got that.
It was interesting because we gave him. He really had all the best lines in this episode, I think. And when Nick Herman, who was the director for, first sat down to play this, and he kind of looked at me like, "What the hell did you do?" Because he's like, "Now I have to make this guy like totally hateable in episode 4, and he's so charming and interesting here."
Well, that
Here we
you
go.
know,
Wait,
that,
here's the line.
that was a good challenge, but that was also the intention from the beginning,
Yeah.
to make the player really kind of relate and like this guy, and then
Yeah, that's when
Tables
the
turn.
I think it was like the end of 2 when playtesters started to single him out as like their favorite character, and I was just like, I think some people were like almost worried about it, but I was like, I think it's great. Like you reel him in, and you're just like, hey, guess what? Your favorite character? Yeah, wait till 4.
he's a butthead.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time making sure we got the right actors for these characters, ones that had the right charisma, the right amount of charm, and the right amount of acting skill. And it took a while, but I'm really happy with all the choices that we ended up with.
Nima was a tough one to cast.
Nemo was a tough one.
Yeah.
We had that tricky balance between someone who could speak Spanish really well and deliver a real good performance, and
And just have the right attitude, like
yeah,
the
have
right toughness.
attitude. Right, exactly, yeah.
So this begins the song sequence, which
I really
John,
like this.
John Drake was kind enough to work in at my request, just because I realized, you know, we'd had so many dinosaur fights set to this great John Williams-esque music, and I was like, it'd be really interesting here to vary it up a bit and do something a little different. And so I came up with this idea. I think because the original idea was like Oscar and the Raptor just hear Nemo and Yoda from a distance, and that's what makes him respond. And Oscar realized he needs to fight this raptor at this moment, and I sort of suggested, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if like the song started playing because of something it did? And John totally worked it into the story in a way that totally made sense. So I really appreciate it.
The juxtaposition is really nice with this really hyper-violent fight and this kind of cheesy,
Ironic,
early
yeah.
90s
I gotta say, and
music going on.
I gotta, the lyrics were written by me.
Oh, wow.
I was wondering who wrote the lyrics.
And Jared Emerson Johnson wrote the music and is doing vocals along with Julian. And we tried a bunch of different songs.
As great as this song is, I'm still attached to the original placeholder.
I tried a lot of temp music, and the difficulty with temp music is like you always get attached to it because you hear it so much and you love it. So, but I was really happy with the song. And then with Daniel Herrera's permission, went and put the song back playing over the radio in the guard booth at the beginning of episode 1
Artie, this
to tie the sequences
nice.
together. So it's very subtle, but it's there.
Favorite person.
That was the last minute.
You've forgiven me
Last
for
minute
fixing
thing.
the lysine problem?
Don't push it.
Yeah, but with the original like temp song that was in there, it was a song from like the 50s that I really liked. So
Yeah.
I was confused as to why Jerry didn't want the music playing.
I think John covered it well because we weren't sure what the music was going to be, and we weren't sure if it was going to be a good piece of music or a crappy piece of music. So I like the idea that Jerry's comment about how he hates that Artie Bridges runs the radio station is ambiguous as to whether or not Artie Bridges chooses bad songs or if he's just bad at being doing the DJ parts in between the songs. So
Jerry just hates songs.
Definitely
from
at
his
least the
childhood.
latter.
yeah, exactly.
Or he
This is
just
my
hates
favorite
him.
line in the whole game, by the way. His line about the salmonella. It was just the line's great, and his delivery is beyond amazing.
Well,
Squares with what I know. They're searching San Jose for this Nedry guy. Thought he was on the last boat.
Yeah, a lot of
Why are
little
they searching San Jose for Nedry?
San Jose, Colombia.
Ah, okay.
That's always a little confusing.
I probably should have known that.
There's no time to save these people.
And so
It's also the capital of Costa Rica, isn't it?
Turns to ground zero.
San Jose.
here's an illusion to what's going to happen at 4.
you got a
but
call for another helicopter.
I like that we gave
Takes the eggheads back to the
the
mainland.
player the ability to choose if Oscar's going to buy into this plan or not. Because in the end, it doesn't really matter anyway because his time on this earth is short.
Like the rest of the guys.
But
You and I hook up later to split our cut.
I like that you get to make the call.
Just keep her.
I always really liked Nima's like in the background acting on this in these shots, just
Yeah.
Play nice, you two.
smiling and
Alright, let's move
shaking
on.
her head.
Take it slow and quiet.
Like, they do not like each
Let's
other.
not start this again. I respect
this
your opinion,
begins
Jerry. Although,
probably
to be
the
honest, I'm a little
Action sequence we
surprised
wrestled
by
with
the
most in the entire episode.
It's just, there are so
So I
many
was creating the
unintended
animation
consequences
list
that
for
come
this
with
section, and I don't smoke. I never have smoked, and I realized that I was learning how to basically.
I remember you
prepare-
sent out that poll in the office of like, if you're a smoker, how do you hold your cigarette and light it?
Yeah, I was trying.
Luckily, I was there to answer that question.
Oh, this lighting, I know caused you great pain, Dave, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it worked out okay.
So this sequence originally went on a lot longer, and it ended up being cut down a lot. I think for the better, because one of the things that concerned me the most was like it had a lot of Jerry hitting raptors in the face with lead pipe, which as cool as that is, I felt like we were in danger of making the raptors not as big of a threat because there was a lot of raptors like kind of hanging around like trying to attack Jerry and hitting. So I tried to make it more about they're trying to get into their formation to take Jerry out as opposed to they're just kind of standing around getting hit by Jerry. Because you still want him to be like really threatening. Oh, that's harsh. I like the head getting into the mouth. I forgot about that.
Yeah, snapping his neck.
And then
we didn't add in the Wilhelm scream though.
Oh, yeah, we should have worked that in. Although that doesn't appear in any of the Jurassic Park films. And then Jessica, you came up with this whole idea of the raptor getting pinned by the forklift, and I'm glad you did because then you volunteered to animate it, or you volunteered to find the budget to animate it, because that was originally not part of the plan, but it's awesome. And then this moment was also really hard to communicate. And the idea, which I never know if it really came across, is like the raptor does get cut, but he also, smells the blood on the knife, and it was really a wrestle to get that to work, and I'm not sure it did, but I think the sequence still works even without it. And I think it came out in production, the idea of like getting the scar on his face, which seemed like a great way to give that raptor an identifiable quality, so when he shows up later, having him be the one that kills Oscar is sort of a revenge thing, kind of worked out really nice.
No problem.
I like how he wipes his bloody hands and Jess's hair.
That Oscar giving just a hug was like, we were trying to do like this really awkward hug, and it's difficult to do that.
It kind of reads as like he almost doesn't want to touch her hair with his bloody hands, but he does anyway.
I remember I pitched one
Jerry's
idea.
animation there.
I pitched one idea where like Jess hugs Oscar and Oscar kind of hugs her back, but then Oscar looks up and sees Jerry kind of looking at him like, "Get your hands off my daughter," but not really necessary.
With the island's geothermal power plant.
So I'm trying to remember when the geothermal power plant even came into the design.
It was fairly late, actually. It was, we were looking. We knew we wanted to kill Oscar off, and we weren't sure how we were going to do it, how we were going to set it up, and we needed a place, where Oscar could become separated from everybody else, and we wanted that moment of him, pressing the button as he was dying. So there needed to be some place, something. And it turned out that the park was powered by geothermal power, amongst other things. So it seemed like.
Yeah, I think the original design had the episode ending in the hallways, right, where he gets killed, and they didn't even get into the nest at all.
Actually, originally, the design went quite a bit farther past the nest and into some of the things that happened in episode 4. But we decided that it was more dramatically appropriate to end it in the nest.
I will say that line that we just heard was a pickup line, because I think when we showed this episode to a lot of people, they didn't quite understand why Jerry really started to fly off the handle at Jess here, and they were just like, he's been a pretty understanding dad up until this point. Like, why all of a sudden is he getting so pissy? Because the original line, I think, was more about the cigarettes. So we tried to change it to where it was more about he's summarizing all the bad things that she's done and the fact that the cigarettes led to them being discovered by the raptors and all that stuff. Just sort of explained why he's so upset with her right here.
Especially at your age. You're not an adult. You might be a young woman.
Kind of a classic rebellious teenager arc.
This line also made some people awkward.
Sorry, Dad, but how many times have you been married? Your kids. Have you even talked
And I love, like,
lately?
just as this starts to get a little serious,
Did you be lecturing
and
anyone about emotional maturity?
you can count on Yoder to inject his personality into it.
Like the nice reference to Sarah there. Nicely done.
Yeah, that's. I didn't even get that until like later on. I'm like, oh, that's the same Sarah.
And Jess is the only one of
Yep.
us.
Hands will pick up.
Absolutely not.
I really like the way you guys have balanced the switching between characters through this episode. You've got all these different groups and everybody's been separated throughout. And it's been a really nice balance going between all of them, and still being able to keep focus on what's going on and not staying with anybody for too long. I was really impressed when I played through this one for the first time and how well that was kind of juggled.
I think it's because we knew like this was going to be the first and last time the group was going to be together as a whole, and we might as well use advantage of it now.
Okay.
Really like the way this environment turned out.
Yeah, props to Leaf, who really
pressure to
did
prevent any more buildup.
a little treatment on this environment to make it look really.
Power console.
It looks hot,
And probably
which I enjoy.
And it looks like Jurassic Park, too.
It does. Yeah, that was the big thing, we were concerned about, was like in this episode you spend a lot of time in these underground tunnels and this power plant, and just reminding people that this isn't just a normal video game, warehouse of boxes. This is Jurassic Park, and trying to layer in as much of that as we could, like the Mr. DNA sign, these panels to push to close, and just making it more on license was really important to us.
That does make sense.
It does now.
So, when do we close the circuit?
It's like you knew either they were going to get together in the end or they were going to kill each other in the end.
Well, you already told her the answer. How hard was that?
I always thought it was amazing that Laura just knew everything about how the park worked.
Well, I guess you're supposed to get the sense that she was involved in the park a lot more, but then towards the end she was sort of excommunicated to this little lab in the field because of her controversial views.
Some kind of motorized assist for it.
Plus, in the her lab notes text, she kind of says that she makes a point of saying that she learned how to do it after they basically said that only a few people were going to be trained as to how to turn the power on. So she kind of went out of her way to go learn.
I don't know if it was ever clear that the rats are running in because they're running away from the raptors, who are on their way.
Yeah, I kind of always pictured a carpet of rats there, but
yeah. It's like a Last Crusade style swarm of rats.
I found what's holding the motor in.
Great, but we don't have any tools.
Don't need any. It's just a latch.
How convenient. Remember, I think the reference animation for this is like somebody in the back room pulling a box.
That was me pulling a box.
Good job. I like how they just stand around and let Oscar do the final turn, like together. Before they were all trying to do it together, and now they're just like, you do it, Oscar.
You need any help?
I'm quite capable, thank you.
Classic.
4.
Is that the...
It's the press to close light. It means the charge is pumped.
Right.
Poor Yoder.
Going to close the circuit and turn
There's
the power
the
back on.
last accident
Please don't
sign
blow,
that
please
was
don't blow.
behind Laura.
I think you'll find we have nothing
Yeah.
to worry about.
DNA one?
Yeah.
I think that was my suggestion, just because I was trying to find any excuse to layer in more Jurassic Park in this environment.
Nothing to worry about, huh?
It's all right, everyone.
More Mr.
It's just
DNA.
a fail-safe measure to protect the plant. We
Yeah, for the
probably
tour
set
Well, apparently
children
you
that
can.
come to the power plant.
Yeah, and Mr. DNA was originally on the death screen when it said, click to continue or press A to continue. It was like Mr. DNA saying you died, but it didn't seem very appropriate to. You just see we established there's Scar.
There was
And
a
there was- yeah,
much
whole
larger
thing-
sequence here
Yeah,
at
you
one
wanna talk
time.
about that, Sean?
Sure. Originally, as Spec, we had Jerry kind of up top telling Nemo where to go, and then having her do these quick time events to sort of, maneuver through the maze, and the Raptors were pursuing her, and it was just going to be really, really, really expensive to build. So we it would have worked, but
Yeah, and it was a risky thing too, because it was like it seemed like it was promising. We had an initial version of it, and we're like, well, to take this to completion, not only is it expensive, but it may or may not work.
Right,
So we were
right.
we decided to play it safe and give it like an action
Maybe at
sequence.
least talk about this.
Where Oscar decides he's gonna go off.
Damn well, I'm the only one's got a chance to get to that control panel.
Maybe, but who says you have to go alone?
I almost wish we had layered in a little bit of Billy
Gotta get these people out.
getting a sense that he's starting to turn, where Oscar says like, "We got to get these people out of here," giving Yoda a moment to where he says like, "Who cares
don't.
about these people? I got $1 million right in my pocket." Like it would have been nice to kind of layer that in, but
I'll let you know.
that only became an idea like towards the end when it was a little too late.
that and Oscar's, pretty straightforward about getting the job done. So
Oscar has
Yeah.
his priorities right,
I could get down that way.
and I guess at this moment, Billy still has his priorities a little straight, but he's starting to not.
I've moved jumps that wide before. All right, I want you to tempt those raptors by creeping down the ladder.
Oh, okay. Before, I thought you were nuts, but that sounds like a great plan.
You got something better?
Always throw the duck.
Was the lava at all controversial? Like, whether or not, did
little
that seem a
bit.
little too far out there? Or?
I think there were some discussions about making it not feel like a lava level. I don't think there was too controversial at any point. Once we knew we had to keep it in perspective.
Every game needs a lava level. The only thing we didn't have is an ice level, and then we would have.
Season 2.
Got it.
We got our warehouse of boxes in.
there
So
are
we're officially
freezers
video gaming.
in Jurassic Park. We could have done
Lighting
that.
crates around.
I think we were also like, there was some discussion about like whether the Raptors would be stupid enough to be distracted by Yoda on the ladder, and I know Yoda on the ladder was like was kind of an expensive thing to animate, and we talked about not having him do that, but I think.
The Yoda on the ladder was actually really cheap to animate.
Oh well, there you go.
I think that's why I argued to keep it in there, because people were saying, let's replace it with him banging things. And I was like,
It just seemed more interesting and active to have him on the ladder. There we go.
I hope he makes it back.
And Bogan worked in the dead eye. I think that was your idea, although I had the same thought, and I was glad that you brought it up first, because then that meant that somebody was going to do
Everyone loves the old dead eye. But yeah, trying to hammer that message across that was the one that he injured before, and there's a personal vendetta going on with those two.
Yeah.
It really needed to be clear visually that he stood out from the others.
Nice, tasty drumstick.
It's a good animation.
Too slow, you dumb lizard.
Actually,
That's a great moment.
Just keep focused on Billy.
Because, they're not lizards.
there was a lot of like creative shuffling around we had to do at the end to get the raptor with the scar to be in the right place in order to actually finish the job, because originally when it was all choreographed and everything, we hadn't put in the raptor with the scar yet, so I had to do a lot to make sure he was the one in the right place to finally kill Oscar. His revenge.
So I named him Scar in all the animations and then exported them that way. So he came into the game being named Scar, but in the scene, they had just named him like Raptor number 3 or something.
Right.
I had to name him back to Raptor number 3.
So I think the first layout of this didn't have as much struggle with the raptor as there's in there now, but I think it was really important to us that he be getting really mauled, and he's really fighting through.
They were also kind of playing with him at this point.
These are the scenes that we talked about really, really early in the story design, these key moments that we wanted to have, and it's always really exciting to see them come together and have the emotion that it needs to have to really sell these things.
Yeah, I did the layout for this sequence.
It's kind of like killer whales when they throw seals up in the air.
And it was
Raptors
actually
are playing with him and letting him think that he's going to push the button.
And it was kind of I was a little nervous about it just because it was the first time in the series that a death was inevitable, and there was nothing you could do as the player to make him survive this, and wondering if people were going to get really hung up on that. But I don't think anybody did. I think they all understood that it was a necessary sacrifice, and Oscar had to go.
I think it was a really good call to let the player be actually in control at that moment, as opposed to just kind of watching it happen or being in control of a different character. You have to kind of go through that. It really helps you get that connection to what's going on.
That shot was added by Sean Ainsworth, and he completely read my mind because I was just about to suggest it just because it's a direct homage to the first movie, but I didn't even have to ask for it. He just went ahead and did it.
I think Oscar dying actually really gives the player a sense of danger now as well, because it's kind of like losing your M16 gunner in battle. Your defenses are totally depleted. And
yeah, because he's the only one who.
That was their fear response.
I was also nervous too earlier in the game where he kills the raptor, just because in the movie there's really not a lot of raptors getting killed by humans.
I didn't have to.
And,
I wanted that.
And Armando.
I fought for that.
If I can go back, actually, Armando, who did the animation layout for that sequence, did such a good job, I thought, of the raptor getting stabbed in the throat, but you actually not really seeing it. The stab was more implied.
It was very, very Spielberg.
It was perfect. Like, I was so happy that.
Let's just give him some space.
5 minutes.
And this is the scene where Yoder is starting to lose it.
Yeah, I think this was done really, really well too. I liked the way he flipped the switch on Yoder and really brought out that other side of him, and instantly all the time that you spent liking him, you're starting to feel uncomfortable about that immediately, and it works really well.
It was kind of
this is what this guy's about.
It was kind of an accident, but also worked out really well to where when we did the record with Jason Marsden, like these lines were towards the end of the recording, so he got to be charming and funny at the beginning, and then by the end he had to be really irritated, which was convenient because we had him do all these screaming stuff, like getting eaten by Oscar, so like he was starting to get kind of tired, and like it's tough to scream all day, so like by this point he was kind of drained in terms of his energy, and it worked perfectly for the character.
That guy was awesome.
Yeah. One thing when we were doing the mocap for a lot of those animations, it was the actors who were doing the mocap's first introduction to Billy and Oscar ever, and they were doing all of the Billy being super upset about Oscar dying, and like everyone on the mocaps shoot that day was just laughing because they were like, why is he so upset? They didn't really have any context as to what's going on.
And there's the tattoo, which you can see on it. It was challenging here too, because like how much could we actually show of the gruesome eggs embedded in a stomach?
Yeah.
And the answer is you can't.
Yeah, you can't show that at all.
But it's appropriate because I don't think in the movies, they don't really show a lot of super gruesome stuff either. It's all kind of implied and obscured. So
outside of class and
severed limb here and there, but
he's a human being.
Definitely a hard license to pull off.
Yeah, I was worried that this was taking it a little bit too far. I mean, I definitely wanted to push it right up against the edge of the license, you know, just like how horrific can we get and still be Jurassic Park? I think it worked out.
By the way, the original design there, I think, just called for him to blink.
Yeah.
And then we had the creepy eye move, which was like a last-minute idea, but
Movie
it doesn't
was the
make
inspiration for that again.
It was you, actually, because you were like sitting, you were showing me the rigged model, and you're like, look how I can move his eyes around, and I was just like, we should just have his eye dart over instead. And it doesn't make sense medically, but
yeah,
I think,
it makes a lot less sense medically.
There's some dramatic license. I thought that moment was way better than just having a eye that would blink.
The reason it came to me is there's a film that I've seen that has that moment in it. I can't even remember what it is now.
Eyeballs in it are creepy. So.
The victim is Daniel Cafaro, another throwaway grunt.
Oh my god. I knew they'd gotten out somehow, but I never thought...
Knew about this? You knew? I'll kill you!
Alright, so everybody, thanks for watching us talk about this game.
Hope you enjoyed watching this once we enjoyed making it.